So yeah, I'm Ben Moskowitz from Mozilla. I'm really happy to be here, and I have to say that I don't really professionally identify with the books part of the conference, but I really strongly identify with the browsers part of the conference, because the thing that I do at Mozilla is try to bring everything into the browser. And I really mean everything. HTML5 and sort of where the web platform is today is making it possible to bring all kinds of media into the browser. You probably know this. So video, documentaries, movies, TV, games, everything that we kind of formerly had being delivered in its own package, through its own channel, in its own form, is sort of getting mushed. So I want to talk about two sort of things that I believe today. One of them you probably already know and don't think is that novel, that the web is introducing multimedia into text. So you can buy ebooks on tablets, and you can have experiences that are mainly textual, that maybe have videos or audio in the kind of sidebar or incorporated into the text. So yeah, you probably believe that the web is introducing multimedia into text. But the more interesting thing, I think, is that the web is introducing textuality into multimedia. And so what I want to do today is show some examples from the work that we're doing inside Mozilla on the open web platform, and particularly using a technology that we're developing called Popcorn, to sort of put this into relief. But the first thing, before we get into that, is I think just in a pedantic way, I want to talk about some of the things that are great about text. I think it's great that you can analyze things with text. I think it's great that you can contextualize things with text. I think it's great that you can make arguments, very nuanced and complex arguments in text. There's some advantages to this medium of text, even as it sort of gets mushed into all the other media as we move on to the web. And what's great about media, video in particular, it's engaging, right? People like to watch movies. It's mimetic, meaning you actually have what happened. If you have a news report, it's a representation of what actually happened. It's that person talking, not you putting words in their mouth. And it's mimetic, meaning it's viral. It spreads really well. So the really cool thing about the web is that you can get all the advantages of like the formerly known as text media and all the advantages of the formerly known as video media, but it's all kind of converged. It's all kind of smashed together. I want to show an example of what I mean by that. This is all the way back in 2004, 8 years ago, 2 elections ago, something that I thought was the most powerful essay of that entire election, but it was not written in text, it was written in video. So I'm just going to play this for you. Although I don't have audio, I need to put this in. So this is entirely culled from clips from the 2004 GOP convention.
In the heart of this great city, we saw tragedy arrive on a quiet morning. September the 11th. September the 11th. September the 11th.
September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th.
September 11th. September 11th.
September 11th. September 11th.
September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th.
September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th, 2001.
Saddam Hussein.
Saddam Hussein.
Saddam Hussein.
Saddam Hussein.
Saddam Hussein.
Saddam
Saddam
Saddam Saddam
Saddam
Saddam Hussein.
War and danger.
Continuing danger.
Hour of danger.
Very, very dangerous world.
A grave new threat.
Horrific acts of atrocities.
Murderous regimes.
Dedicating to killing us.
Tyranny and terror.
Slaughtered thousands.
Weapons of mass destruction.
Weapons of mass destruction.
Weapons programs.
The deadliest of weapons.
Terrible weapons.
Nuclear weapons.
Nuclear weapons.
Poison gas.
Torture chambers.
Mass graves.
Deadly technologies.
Radical ideology of hate.
Terror of threats.
Terror.
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 War on terrorism.
War against terrorism.
Global war on terror.
Global terrorism. 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 global terrorism.
Terrorism. Terrorism.
Terrorism.
Terrorism.
Terrorism, 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 terrorism.
The evil terrorists. 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 Terrorists.
Terrorist, 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 terrorist.
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 Terrorist. Terrorist.
Terrorists, 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 terrorists.
So that I didn't make that, but that's an essay. That is absolutely an essay, I think. And the thesis of the essay is that the GOP had only one thing on the platform, which is, you should be scared and we'll keep you safe. I think that, in some ways, is way more effective than any op-ed or presidential endorsement that happened in the 2004 election. If we had more of that, it's possible that we'd have more civic engagement. It's possible that the way we communicate is different. I think that the closest thing that we have to this in mainstream media is Jon Stewart. It's like The Daily Show. And so part of what we're trying to do in Popcorn Land with these new technologies on the web is to take all the advantages of all these types of media, of text, of TV news, of documentary, you name it, sort of smash it together and give people the ability to do this kind of stuff all across the web writ large. So I'm just going to show some examples. Popcorn is a JavaScript library. It's a free and open source piece of software that you can use as a developer to make any number of things. So the first example I'm going to show you using Popcorn.js is a straight up remix. But the cool thing about this remix is that with Popcorn.js, we're showing all of the source material that went into this remix. So for every frame of the video, where did the video source come from? Where did the audio source come from? Along with some footnotes and some references to it. So rather than show it to you, I'm just going to sort of jog through. Halfway through, 3 minutes and 57 seconds, 58 seconds. This exact frame, this comes from the cartoon Donald's Cousin Gus. You could click here, you can go to Wikipedia, and you can sort of see the source material, which is kind of neat. The audio source is the same as video. 5 minutes and 4 seconds in, 5 minutes and 18 seconds. The video source is Through the Mirror, a 1936 Mickey Mouse cartoon. The audio source is the February 17, 2010 Glenn Beck broadcast. So this is a cool remix, you should watch it. And I'm only showing you this because I think it's a good example of showing where you got your source material from. This is a really kind of plain and kind of Popcorn 101 style example of just showing metadata in a time-aligned way. Popcorn is really good at this kind of stuff. Here's another example. This is also time-aligned media. This is having actions trigger along a timeline. But this time it's trying to add context to a news report. And again, this is only a demo, so I'm showing you this just to sort of step you through what you can do with the web platform.
Next, making buildings sturdier so they
Woodruff,
can withstand.
and she's talking about the earthquakes in Haiti.
Tomorrow marks a year since Haiti's devastating earthquake.
And as she talks, we have some metadata here. So we have current discussion from Twitter on the topic of Haiti. We have, oh, sorry, that's not Judy Woodruff, that's Margaret Warner. Or is it? You have Margaret Warner's tweets. You have stuff from Wikipedia. You have a live Google map of Port-au-Prince. So this is just kind of a cool demo showing you how you can have a living web page or a living news report using Popcorn. And this is several years old. I'm just sort of stepping you through some of the demos that we've done. Here's something from this election cycle, which is kind of neat. Here's a bunch of policy issues: Afghanistan, energy, jobs, and economy, and speeches by both candidates on these issues. And you can go ahead and click on one of these speeches, and using Popcorn, the newsroom developers behind this have done kind of a live fact check. So as the candidates say a statement or refer to some piece of policy, you'll get a pop-up, like VH1 style pop-up video, and you'll get links to kind of source material down here, if the video loads, of course. Which is looking suspect. I don't think it's an issue of internet. It's just that if you do live demos, bad stuff happens. If you do 10 live demos like I'm doing, one of them might not work. And this might be our one. Okay, so we'll skip this one. But those are some examples of how the first point that I made is sort of coming into relief, right? You're getting multimedia and you're getting text, and they're kind of living and working together. But what I think is more interesting is introducing textuality into multimedia. So let me show you sort of a different and more interesting demo. When you watch video or when you listen to audio, you're going to hit play on some piece of media. It's going to carry you through in a linear fashion from start to end. So this is the passive viewing model that we all know and love from TV. This is kind of an interesting take on what would it be to consume media if consuming media were like scrolling down a web page. So this is using parallax. As I scroll down, so I'm going to refresh this.
This is why I fear there will be ultimately no meeting of minds between committed environmentalists and those of us on the realist.
So we land on this
side.
web page and we have a nice voiceover.
They have two entirely different.
And as we scroll through, we can actually just skip the parts of this that we may not find that interesting.
Whether we actively believe them or consciously reject them, our culture remains in the grips of certain archetypal stories about our supremacy over others and over nature. The narrative of the newly discovered frontier and the conquering pioneer, the narrative of manifest destiny, the narrative of apocalypse and salvation. And just
Welt and Schauungen, I suppose you'd call them, in as much as deep environmentalists, deep ecologists believe that capitalism.
Digamos que el modelo económico que ha imperado le ha generado una cantidad de necesidades al ser humano hasta el punto de que se consideran imprescindibles, ¿verdad?
This is
y al no
sort of
tenerlas,
interesting because instead of hitting play on a video, you're cycling through a web page, and there's a relationship between where you are in the web page and where the information is being presented and what media is being played. So this is something you should try out for yourself because I don't think the demo is super well. Here's something that demos really excellently. This is actually much cooler. This is a transcript of a radio show, and the transcript is word aligned. Each word is hyperlinked to the time in the media that the content pertains to. So I'm going to hit play here.
Let's move on to the browser, the one on your computer, smartphone, and tablets. It's one of the most important tools in our everyday life.
Now, let's say I wanted to skip halfway through into maybe 5 minutes into this thing, right? I can click on the transcript here, on the written transcript.
What you will notice at first sight is
that
the user interface, the appearance.
I'll take us down to when we start talking about smartphones.
We'll have
smartphone users in particular have had a huge
advantage. Web is about participation.
Google Chrome's similar synchronization features.
So there's a kind of hypertext relationship between every word in this transcript and the media itself. These are just some interesting concepts that show how you can start to mash text and media. And one really cool thing about this whole cluster of experiments, the hyper audio kind of phenomenon, as it's called by the people who are developing it, is that it's getting funded. And so there's an announcement coming that there will be a tool this time next year that will let you copy text from a transcript like this, paste it into a window, copy text from another transcript, paste it into the window, and do video editing the way that you would do in a nonlinear editor, only using text, which is really neat. So let's say I have every speech that's been given on the topic of Afghanistan in the 2012 election. I can line up all of those transcripts. I can copy the most interesting quotes from each one of them. I can paste them into a new composition and hit render, and I have that video without needing to do any video editing. So this is all pretty neat, and you can check this out. Here's kind of one final example in the hyperaudio sort of space of things. This is the same technology that you just saw, applied to a presidential debate. The whole transcript is hyperlinked, which is pretty cool. And you can also do some analysis on the transcript. So let's see how many times the word Afghanistan came up. In this particular debate, which I think is the second debate, Obama said it once, Romney did not say it. Veterans. Obama said it twice, Romney said it not at all. And you can also click here to get the frequency of that word.
Veterans who fought for our country, that grows our economy.
Let's see jobs.
Veterans who sacrificed for this country.
So Romney said
Students
jobs 36
who are out there.
times. Obama said jobs 33 times. And we can just go to the frequency chart here.
Jobs again. Jobs. Jobs come back. Jobs in Iowa and across jobs.
So this is kind of neat. This is enabling sort of those textual characteristics of analysis, of argumentation, all the great things that we like about text in multimedia. And this becomes really interesting when you start to look at political memes and political messaging. So how often does Obama say fair share, for instance? In this debate, only once. How often does the word 5 trillion come up, or the meme 5 trillion come up? None. But yeah, this is just kind of neat stuff. So everything that I've shown so far, whether it's the demo of showing source material, whether it's the demo of giving context to some media, whether it's the demo of doing augmentation on video, or even letting you kind of copy and paste text in the same way, or copy and paste media in the same way that you copy and paste text. All this stuff is on the edge of experimentation on what you can do when media lives on the web. When text and video and audio and games and documentaries and movies and TV all are kind of smashed into the browser. So again, books in browsers, phenomenal. I think it's everything in browsers. And I think that we can start to talk about, and I suspect has been talked about and will be talked about, how things like popcorn and how technologies that enable this kind of experimentation and like rapid feature building will change the unit of content and will change the way that the content is presented. Just to sort of finish off the part of this that I wanted to drop on you guys, and I would be interested in having some questions. All of this suggests that the definition of literacy that we've had for so long, which is being able to read and write, and the definitions of media literacy that we have, which are to kind of understand the messages that are coming to us through the media, even those might not be sufficient to take part in the kind of cultural spirit, right? So if you are an informed voter 10 or 15 or 20 years from now, or if you're a message maker, or if you're somehow involved in the kind of thing that you've seen with the supercuts or with any of these demos, right? You're not just be able to read and write. You're not just able to understand the messages that are coming in to you from the media. You're able to recombine text, audio. You're able to use a plethora of tools. You're able to, in one project, you're able to use a web browser, a version control system, a blogging platform, social media, a video editor, something like Popcorn. You can almost approach a project like this needing 10 or 15 or 20 different literacies, which I think is super interesting. So I'm thinking like way ahead. I'm kind of speculating on like 10 or 15 years out. In order to get to that 10 or 15 years out where people can do this kind of stuff and not have it be a crickety demo and not have it be something which is a peak or a little slice of imagination and not really much behind it, we've started to build out tools at Mozilla, and there are tools that we're releasing next week, actually. So I just want to give you a quick demo of the first kind of consumer-grade tool that we've built using Popcorn.js, the developer framework. And this is actually a consumer-facing product called Popcorn Maker. And I'm just going to go ahead and pop us in here. So let's see. Best news story in the last week. Shout it out. Best news story of the campaign season, maybe. Shout it out. 47%. Oh, yes. Brilliant. That's actually a really good one. Is this the one here?
Jim Woolsey, President Clinton's first director of the Central Intelligence Agency, talks about
Okay, Jim.
3 years. All everybody's been told is don't.
Okay, this is the 47% video. What I'm going to do is, I have an older person here. I'm going to drop this video into Popcorn Maker. So now I have a workspace around this video. This 48% video, 47% video, which I've got from YouTube here.
So there are 47% of the all everybody's been told is don't worry, we'll take care of it. How are we going to do it 2 months before elections to convince everybody you got to take care of your stuff? So there are 47% of the people who vote.
Okay, so 47% who are with him, who are dependent upon government. So one thing I can do is I can add a pop-up here, and I can say, as a matter of fact, 40%, as Romney imagines, are people in Florida and Ohio who are more likely to vote for him, right? And then a link to a tax policy document, for instance, right? I can kind of move it around here. I can style it in some interesting ways. Just go bold it, italic it. Then I can sort of... Okay, income tax. Maybe I want to see what is happening conversationally out on the web around income tax. So I'll create an event here. You never know. I'll do a search for income tax on Twitter. I'll sort of display it like a ticker down here, and I'll have it fade in. And I'll have it display for the rest of the video there. And then just for good measure, let me just do some trolling here. I'm going to go to Flickr. I'm going to get a whole bunch of images of Mitt Romney. This is obviously a very poorly this would not be effective in the civic engagement space. But yeah, so I've sort of awkwardly authored this video here, this annotation over Mitt Romney video. I've got pop-ups that sort of give my point and links to tax policy documents. I've got calls out to Twitter to see what people are saying about income tax, and I've got a random slideshow of Mitt Romney getting trolled. So now I go off and share this, right? So I give my project a name, Trolling Romney. And I can share this actually, which is quite cool. I can get an embed code the same way that you would get a Twitter or YouTube or a Flickr embed code, and I can put it on my blog. I can send it to my friends, I can tweet it. So I encourage you to check this out. This is at popcorn.webmaker.org. It is the first consumer-grade thing that we've done on top of the Popcorn.js framework to enable people to speak back into the media in this way. And it's supported by Popcorn.js, which is a really robust developer framework. It's in use by a bunch of folks in public media. It's in use by a bunch of media companies, and it's pretty robust. Last thing, I know I've kind of been all over the map with various technical demos. Everything that I've shown is, again, sort of a peek at what video can be and a peek at what I think the media will be when everything's smashed and converged into itself. Where we think this is going to become really interesting is when we are able to work with people like the Internet Archive, in particular around things like the TV News Archive. How many of you are familiar with the TV News Archive? I think that if you have a computer right now, you should go to tv.archive.org, because what the folks at the Internet Archive have developed is a complete searchable by captions record of all TV news going back to 2009 and ahead. So everything from 2009 till 24 hours ago is available for you to find here just by making a search. And this is the most complete visual record that I think is accessible to researchers and to people who are change makers, whether, again, they're making documentaries or making their point on YouTube, wherever it is that they're trying to engage and sort of create conversational media. It's things like this that are going to enable us to go from the demo space of like, here's a bunch of hacky, interesting concepts to here's the 15-year-old who's doing Jon Stewart in her bedroom, right? Here's the 15-year-old high school sophomore who's really engaged in reproductive policy, for instance, and wants to do Jon Stewart-style commentary in her bedroom. And when that becomes more egalitarian, I think that that's the really interesting piece. So definitely check this out. And keep an eye out for the kind of latest popcorn stuff as well. So just to kind of sum up, this is books in browsers, and I think that there's a lot that the web can do to make books in browsers more multimedia rich, right? It's that first point. It's bringing multimedia to text. But I really think that bringing the characteristics of texts that we really like, the analysis, kind of deep engagement, the contextualization, all that good stuff, all the kind of, when you think about writing text on your computer, copying and pasting and creating reference notes and hyperlinks and all that, think about what that will be when we're doing that with rich media, just like this. And with that, I think I'm going to wrap. Does anybody have any questions about popcorn or sort of any of the demos that you've seen today? In the back? That's a really good question. So the question is, can you take the things that you create using popcorn and walk away with them? Do you have data portability with popcorn? And the answer is yes. One of the coolest things about Popcorn Maker is that all of that product, everything that's developed by you, is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So it's all open web technologies. So in fact, if you become frustrated with the limitations of Popcorn Maker, you can take all of the project files that you've created and then begin hacking on them directly. And if you do that, you have all the capabilities of Popcorn.js and the wider web available to you. So we're really, we think interoperability of this stuff is really important. And one reason that we approach, or one way that we approach all this stuff is to make sure that we're never siloing any stuff. And when we, to the extent that we have metadata that we have to worry about, that it's all standard metadata. We're trying to really make web video big and interoperable and kind of fascinating in that way. Any questions about the demos, Popcorn? Is there anybody who has no idea what the heck is going on?